So here we're and I'm here. This is Deerfield, Illinois. I went to Deerfield, Wilmot Junior High, where I was a Blue Jay, and I played basketball. And we played against other junior highs, Shepherd Junior High and some other junior highs. So anyways, my nephews, they went to Wilmot Junior High, and right across from it is Wilmot Elementary, but they started in the junior high a table tennis program. And it was an after-school program for the kids, and it was competitive table tennis. But the thing is, they could have set up an intramural and an intramural. Intra, within the school, between, inter, I-N-T-E-R, means between, intra means within. So intramural is within the school, intramural is between schools. So anyways, they set it up here, and you can see all the awards it won. If you're looking, there's Deerfield Gardens and everything. So there's a bunch of rental properties, rental apartments and rental properties in Deerfield. And you can see all the awards that the school has won. So, and they can have Bible study here. Truly. I would have participated in junior high Bible study. I was part of Young Life, and they weren't at Christian schools. I went to Young Life with people from the Trier High School, and we were from Deerfield High School and some other high schools, and none of them were Christian schools, meaning formal Christian schools, like Loyola Academy. Some reason we didn't have any people from Loyola Academy in Young Life. We should have. But again, here's the entrance to Caruso Middle School. Welcome, Blue Jays. And you can see it right here. Welcome, Blue Jays. But if you want an outstanding, education, and you want it from a public school, here. But again, this is where Young Life can be in these type of schools that particularly focus on non-Christian schools. So they're more an outreach organization, but they can go into Christian schools as well. But again, we did it with non-Christian schools, and we were a part of Young Life. So I was part of a Christian organization when I was in high school. I wish I was part of it in junior high, but I was part of it in high school. So, again, my nephews set up the program here, and they could do an extension in China with Mr. Taffel, who my nephew Jim, he taught extracurricular activity for the students at a private school in Shanghai. That Mr. Taffel, who was a teacher here at Caruso Middle School, or Wilmot Junior High, formerly Wilmot Junior High, now Caruso Middle School, and they can do a exchange program for these students to play at the junior high level competitive ping pong. But they can set it up through the junior highs. And Engelbert, I haven't seen him, he's Asian, and he used to run the program and trained Jim and Matt on how to play competitive ping pong, and they won the doubles, the U.S. championship for doubles for ping pong. for under, I forget what age group. But they set it up here, and they could have done that all over. I helped set it up in Chicago. Jen was tutoring at an all-black school, and I got the ping pong table and everything, and we set up the ping pong program. But, things got left because me and Jen eventually separated and so on. But she stayed tutoring for Mercy boys, and she tutored lots of boys. This Asian female in particular, lots of black boys she tutored. But anyways, the only way she can go is back to me or stay with her current husband. That's a side note. But again, she was an Asian, and I got her into the black community. Truly, I got her in helping out and volunteering and helping develop black people. In particular, she went into focus on black children. That was her own initiative. She found it for herself, and she started tutoring, and she continued on tutoring young black males to achieve, which is part of solving the problem. So she took the inspiration from me and carried it out on her own even further. And that was awesome. And she continued on after we separated. But they could have taken this program and intertwined it. I tried to get them in even Engelberg to go into the black schools and teach them ping pong, so they could expand ping pong through the Caribbean and ping pong through Africa. These Asian African nations. So ping pong's in Europe and Asia, but not really in Africa or the Caribbean. And there's Spin the Bar, and that's owned by Susan Sarandon, and she can get more Hollywood backers. Truly, more backers from Hollywood, maybe Woody Harrelson and others. That might be. Ping pong's great for elderly people, for hand-eye coordination. It's not overly demanding. Like Joe, he's a Jewish guy. He was old, and he used to play. And I was with all these older people, 60, 70 years old, that played ping pong. And they were in tournaments. I'll put it on Facebook. But 60, 70, 80-year-old people playing in competitive ping pong in the senior circuit. Ping pong. I love ping pong. I grew up playing ping pong at Patrick Henry, and we had citywide competitive tournaments. So my nieces and nephews didn't know that, but I grew up playing competitive ping pong and competitive bumper pull. I love bumper pull. And these were tournaments that were citywide and statewide. And so I did well. I didn't win any champions, but I did well. And it was great. We would have them at the field house, and we had the bumper pull tables, and people would come in from other park districts, and we would have tournaments. They would come in from other park districts, and we'd have ping pong tournaments. And this was in the city of Chicago, but Deerfield doesn't have to worry about that. They can play with Highland Park, with Glenview and Northbrook and other suburbs. And so they get the collaboration between the suburbs. And that's how they can duplicate the city with the field houses. It's indirect because they're on different budgets, but they can still get a similar type system if they get collaboration between the suburbs. That's why I say the organization of North Shore, suburbs, where you get this coordination, and they can do things like this between the park districts of the North Shore. Park districts, between the park districts. they can have competitive golf tournaments where you got Deerfield Public Golf Course and Glencoe Public Golf Course, and I think Glenview has one, and Wilmette, and you can have this round robin tournament amongst the public golf courses from, preteens to teenagers to 20s, however you want to do the segments, both male and female. Then you can have both male and female teams. So mixed doubles, truly. And so it's something, but you need to create an organization between the suburbs. And the winner of that can play the winner of the city. The North Shore and then the South Shore can have theirs, and West Shore can have theirs. East Shore is Lake Michigan, so there's no one there. But you would have South, West, and East. And South, West, and North. East is the lake, 63 miles of the lake. That's Chicago. It continues on up in Wisconsin, so it goes more than 63 miles, and the lake goes all the way down to Indiana. Illinois moves away from Lake Michigan, further downstate. Or on the other side of Chicago, really. It moves away from Lake Michigan and keeps on going. So anyways, they can set up this, but you have to have the coordination of the park districts between the North Shore, then the West Shore, and then the South Side. And then you can have a suburban champion. The champion of the North Shore would play the champion of the West Suburban and South Suburban. They would play in a round-robin tournament. The three shores, South Shore, West Shore, North Shore, would play in a round-robin tournament. And the winner of that would play the winner of the city, say. And so then you have the winner of the suburbs playing the winner of the city, and it would be the Chicagoland Championship. The Chicagoland Championship, or you can just have them all four play. The North Shore, West, and South, and City of Chicago champions all play together in one tournament. And they can play on one course from the South Shore, one course from the West, one course from the North, and one city course. So they play on 4 golf courses. And then they would tally the scores, and then you would have the Chicagoland champion. That's golf, but you can do the same thing with table tennis and bumper pool. You don't see bumper pool much anymore, but I love bumper pool. It teaches you geometry, bank shocks, trigonometry, angles. So, again, these things you can learn. Even pool teaches you that. Geometry, trigonometry. But, again, you have to first get the coordination. So you have to have somebody like WBBM. They can start these things. They can be the founder who founds these things. And that gets their outreach into the public, and they found these competitive events. And they found the Association of the North Shore, Association of the West Shore, Association of the South Shore. And then they work with, already Chicago is the aldermanic wards within the city are basically in an association already. So WBBM can get that, and that's their civic engagement. And it creates awareness of the station and their mission and so on and so forth. But it promotes wellness, and this can be done all year round. So, you have to think of other things you can do. Like on golf courses is great for, I said this to the owner of the Cubs, cross-country skiing and snowshoeing and snowmobiling on golf courses. But you got to be careful with snowmobiling because you need enough snow so you don't eat into the grass. But again, they have those open fairways, and they're great for sledding and all that stuff on golf courses that they don't tend to do winter recreation, which they can do. And you just have to design it correctly where the greens and the fairways and that are protected. There's enough snow. But there's things that they can do in the winter on golf courses. And I was talking to Tom Ricketts about that at an event years ago. But again, these are things that can be done to improve life here. And if you improve life, real estate value goes up. And people don't understand. The better people's lives are, the more people will pay to live there. And that means real estate values go up. So, again, crime, they go down. You make it into this place that's incredibly great to live in, and real estate values go way up. And so, WBBM I'm listening to right now, and the girl who did the noon business hour used to be my regular at Joey's, and we had great conversations. And I told her I was in finance, I was an advisor, and she would like talking to me, and we would have great conversations about finance. And she'd bring in, now her friend, I'll give you a story. Her friend was the one I turned down giving a beer to, that she was pregnant. And I told her I can't serve pregnant women alcohol. And I said I can get you somebody else, but I can't serve you. It's against my beliefs. And she said, that's okay. I appreciate that you care about me. And she was very cordial and friendly about it and understanding. And she said, I'll have a non-alcoholic. So I served her, I don't know, juice or something else. But truly, she was very understanding, and she was very polite, and she was the friend of the girl from WBBM. But it is against my religious belief. I don't do things to hurt the baby. So, again, that would be sacrilegious. I can't do things to hurt the baby. I have to protect the unborn child. So I can't do actions that hurt the unborn child. That's against my belief. And every night I pray for all the pregnant women in the world and their unborn child or children, in case they have twins or something. But again, they can organize this on Holly Kim is running for something. Kim's a Korean name. I don't know her, but it was a political sign. So, again, port wine is a good wine. They inject into it brandy to stop the fermentation, I think. I forget exactly how they create, but it's an injection of alcohol to create a port wine. Port wines are awesome. So anyways, as communities get safer, as tailgating goes away, and people drive more properly, real estate values go up. But anywhere where cars drive inappropriately, real estate value goes down because tension goes up and people move away from tension. So why do you think people don't live in the ghetto on the south side and want to move in? Now, there's upside potential if you can turn around the neighborhood, but so there are here. As it gets more holy and people do more of the right thing, real estate values go up. But if you want to kick it in the pants and turn it negative and have people doing the wrong things, then real estate value will plummet. This won't be a good place to move to. It'll be a place you move from. because of, like, Detroit, with the flight out of Detroit. As it got more and more violence, more and more people fled the city. Both, not only white flight, lots of black people fled the city. It's just too violent. Devil's Night and many other things. And what happened? The city of Detroit went bankrupt. So when you have people doing the wrong thing and you don't nip it in the bud, you open the floodgates to other people to do the wrong thing. And then more and more people start following trend. What you sow is what you reap. And they start doing more and more wrong things. And they follow along. So, association. So, negativity, breeds negativity. Positivity breeds positivity. And so, what you sow is what you reap. And so, what do you want? If you want to breed negativity and destroy the value of the North Shore, look at John Hughes' films, Uncle Buck. Incredibly wholesome with John Candy. Risky Business. He saves the girl from the pimp and gets her out of prostitution. Truly saves her from Guido the killer pimp, which he wasn't a murderer, but the whole point is he made her an honest woman. And John Hughes did things, so Risky Business, and that as a theme of positivity, taking somebody who is doing something negative and turning it into something more moral and more positive. So, again, out of that situation. So, but when you close down avenues, there is no absence of desire. And so this is why you have the pedophile priest. So I had lots of women solicitors in my life, my whole life. So even in my first breakdown, I had many women solicitors. So this one has been unique, where I don't have women lining up. But before I did. So it's interesting how this one, my whole life, I had lots and lots of women solicitors. Truly numerous. And this is interesting where I don't. And so, anyways, seems this has turned very demonic and satanic up here. So, that being said, you reap what you sow. And so if you're going to take away my natural right to get a woman, to be in physical intimacy with a woman, as Adam got Eve in the Garden of Eden. God didn't say, Adam, you're going to be alone to the day you die. He said, no, Adam, I'm going to give you Eve, and both of you are naked in the Garden of Eden, and feel free to have as much sex as you want. Truly, be as intimate as you want. Go for it. You determine what satiation is based on your desire. So, truly, and they talk about it in the Bible. So, if you're going to take something that God demands that I have away from me, then what you sow, my destruction through my separation from the female physically, then you will be punished in eternal damnation because of your evil. So this is the first time I've ever been separated for this. And not like, oh, I have somebody on social media. These were physical, that I had physical interactions with, that we had these situations. So I've never had a dry spell like over the last 10 years that I've had now. That's never happened in my entire life. Like I told you, Pauline and Joelle, which you don't know if you listen, I had 2 girls with me most of the time when I was in elementary school. And they were very beautiful, they were very athletic, and we played games and hung out, and we were best friends. And it was awesome. Like, deeply cared for them, and they cared for me. We never had, really, the small Pauline was much more competitive athletically than Joelle. She got frustrated a few times when she'd lose. And I learned how to control, like I did have to do with my sister, but Pauline taught me. And so I learned how to grab women's wrists and how to handle them in episodes of anger where they were acting out against me physically. And so, because I cared deeply, I never hit Pauline. She would beat on my chest, and then I would grab her wrists and kind of turn her around and tie her up with her hands, holding her wrists. And then she would laugh, and it would all be over. Same thing I did with my sister when she used to hit me. I would just tie her up, and her I turned upside down and then right side up, and she thought it was funny. And basically, I would de-escalate. Because if I hit her, if I can devastate a male, if I opened up on them, it would have been not right. What I said, I've only done to people what was justified my whole life. And so I've never fully opened up on a male either. I've knocked many out, but I could have opened up even deeper and put them out eternally. But there was no reason to go to that step. I never had that situation where I was presented where the male took it to that level that I had to terminate their life. Usually, they understood they were defeated. Truly, sometimes I had to go back a second time, only once in my life with Tony, but that was a young kid. But as adults, they understand when they were defeated. They were rational in that sense, because it was pretty much dominant. It was more me hitting them and them hitting the floor. So it wasn't prolonged. When you get in a fight, and this is what people don't understand, they think they have a chance. How you impose dominance where they don't have a chance is when they engage you, you demolish them immediately. And you do that. I've never had any male ever want any more, because they didn't have any hope. See, when you get into a prolonged battle or struggle, like, lightning fast war, or like the Germans, the Blitzkrieg, they don't have any hope and everything collapses around them. When the Blitzkrieg got stalled at St. Petersburg and that, which it did, they got hope. Because stalling them or stopping their progress, they built up momentum on the other side. It's just like when you're beating a team and you stop gathering points above them, they get hope, and there's the comeback. You're up by 20, and now it's a 10-point game, a 5-point. Now you're tied because the momentum shifted. And so when you interact, and that's what we do wrong militarily, we give them hope. If you truly want to end something, you decimate them. You don't give them a light at the end of the tunnel. You make it hopeless. You totally and utterly destroy them. You totally dismantle them. You don't give them any ability or desire or hope to fight again. But we do that all the time, like the bombing and this other show I was watching, they talked about it. And it was a movie, talked about us pulling out of Lebanon after the bombing and that. And what do? We give them hope. And they bomb us, we pull out. They get what they wanted. They wanted us to withdraw. They wanted to have hope. And so I totally desecrate in that, or destroy, but I do it swiftly. That's what the Bible talks about. When God does it, he will do it swiftly. There will be no hope. It will be total and utter annihilation. There will be no ability to live. It will be unbelievably swift and final. There will be no chance for hope. But you understand this, they have to learn then to rebuild. But if you give them an inch, they take a mile. They have that light at the end of the tunnel that they can have this comeback, the terrorist. That they can rise again one day. And that's why the premise of never pulling out, like of Iraq or Afghanistan, and having a constant presence reminds them there is no hope. If you start to rise, we will wipe you out immediately. So the Germans learned that, the Japanese learned that. We stationed the bases there, and they learned that the only thing is to comply. And it's kept perfect peace. Germany's never rose up again. Japan's never rose up again. But when you withdraw, then the people within the government that are evil get the idea that they can rise up against you again. So that's about forgetting. You know, you're damned if you forget the past. Well, that's what they hope for. That you will forget the past and they'll be able to rise up again and crush you. So I learned when I was fighting that, first of all, the longer it goes on, the greater chance I have of getting hurt. So I wipe out my enemies. So I've never had a fight that was a brawl. Not in my whole life. And I fought a lot. But the people were eliminated. I eliminate them in one or two moves. That's it. I've never had a confrontation go beyond one or two moves. Even when I'm suppressing somebody, it never went beyond one or two moves. There was no long struggle. It was me taking them and them hitting the floor. I have set a record pin in the state of Illinois. So I only recently lost my first fight as an adult. And that's because I didn't know how hobbled my body was, but it was more hobbled than I thought. But the whole point is, I don't give them hope. It is comply or perish. So I don't believe you give them an alternative. That's why when we went to Germany, it's an unconditional surrender. When we went to Japan, it was an unconditional surrender. When you allow them to set conditions, they have hope. They feel empowered. But when you force an unconditional surrender, they feel hopelessness, powerless. And that's exactly what you want. That's the point of an unconditional surrender. hopelessness, powerlessness. And then you give them, as we did with the Marshall Plan and all that, we rebuilt them. We gave them a new direction. We gave them a new purpose. So we empowered them to refocus. See, you can't shut them down and not give them hope. So you have to channel them into a new purpose. Rick Warren, purpose-driven life. You can use that. Truly. Give them and do the studies with purpose-driven life and help them find a new purpose. So when they come out of prison and they do crimes again, they get with the old gang again, and they have this hope of opportunity of robbing the bank again or committing the crime and the evil, and you get a lot of recidivism, people doing the same things and going back to jail because you give them hope. I showed in tracking and parole officers and many other things in screening systems and that where they get no sense of hope. So it's hopeless to not comply. But as you allow them to not comply, you give them hope. And more people see their resistance and so on. Watch Star Wars. It shows you, and as the rebels gain ground and they get more hope and so on and so forth, and all of a sudden you have a revolution on your hands. So the point is not to give them hope, not to allow them to gain momentum, not them to build up this hope. So you totally, utterly annihilate them, unconditional surrender, and then you rebuild them and channel their evil demons into something good. But when you give conditionals, they feel empowered, and when they disagree with you, they will act out viciously against you. So you have to be very careful when you do a deal where it is not an unconditional situation where you're allowing conditions, then you believe the other side is rational and will act rational. When there is a disagreement, they will go through the diplomatic channels, they will do tariffs, they will do quotas, they will do things along those lines and not send over suicide bombers. Not try to blow up your building, not engage in acts of guerrilla warfare or terrorism. That they will do things in a civil manner. But that's when you believe that you can have this mutually agreed upon situation. But when you can't, then it must be an unconditional surrender, and you stay present and you never give them hope again, and you force them to move in the direction of your rebuild. And we rebuilt them and we pushed them into the direction, and we created international trade for Germany and international trade for Japan. Part of it is not only building back Japan, we opened up trade. We opened up their auto industry. We allowed them to build autos, and they imported them here. We built up a lot of trade. We did the same with Germany, and we built a way for them to gain prosperity, to gain hope of a better tomorrow, to gain a future, and so on. And that's part of it. So the Marshall Plan, not only building the physical infrastructure in that, but also building trade. And this way they can earn capital and build wealth and prosperity into a brighter tomorrow. So again, doing things the right way. But you have to understand how to address your enemies correctly for who they are. And if you don't sum them up right, then you don't take the tactics appropriate, and you end up with what we have. This perpetual decades and decades and decades and decades of unbelievable terrorists, unbelievable terrorism, unbelievable crime. So, again, You have to understand these things and apply them effectively. I learned these things. And so when I apply things, I apply them correctly. And so you learn from God. He understands and he applies things very correctly. He does exactly what he needs and no more than he needs. It's perfectly justified, and he doesn't do anything unrighteous. He doesn't do anything that doesn't need to be done in the way it needs to be done. But I'll leave this here.